Well, good morning. We begin this morning with breaking news out of Ukraine, where President Biden made an unannounced visit. It's his first trip to the country since the start of the war, and it's the first time in modern history that a U.S. president entered a war zone without an active American military presence, I should say. Mr. Biden met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in the capital city of Kyiv at a critical moment in the war. Friday will mark 1 year since Russia's invasion. President Biden spoke today about U.S. support for Ukraine.
Remind us that freedom is priceless. It's worth fighting for as long as it takes. And that's how long we're going to be with you, Mr. President, for as long as it takes.
We'll do it.
Thank you, President.
All right, so let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang to talk a little bit more about really what is a historic visit. We did not know that the president was going to Kyiv. We know that he's going to Poland, and the expectation was that he was going to be leaving from D.C. to go to Poland. Can we talk about the significance of this trip, the timing and the messaging to Russia and to Ukrainian allies?
Good morning, Anne-Marie, and good morning to everybody. You're absolutely right. This sends a huge message to Vladimir Putin because it is unprecedented, and it is marking the 1-year anniversary of Russia's invasion into Ukraine. And you're right also about the fact that, the president was always going to Poland, but he wasn't supposed to leave until late this evening. But we now know that he left around 4 in the morning on Sunday, that this was a very top secret trip. In fact, those of us in the White House press corps did not even learn about it until early this morning. And so, this tells you how much planning had to go into this. The reason why the president hadn't gone yet is, in large part because of security reasons. And this is a trip that he has wanted to make. In fact, in the days leading up to today, when he was supposed to take off for Poland, reporters, this one included, were asking the White House, are you sure he's not going to go to Ukraine? Is he going to go to the border at the least? And they were very insistent that, this trip was going to be about Poland. He was going to go to Poland and take with him there the message that the U.S. has unwavering support for Ukraine. And certainly this sends that message even more, Anne-Marie, because, there are no U.S. troops on the ground there. There are no U.S. troops involved in this conflict. And so for the president of the United States to go there really shows that he means it when he says that the U.S. will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Yeah, and what there is a whole lot of financial investment by the U.S., a lot of military aid. And I think for people, over the last year, they would have heard one announcement after another. These are very big numbers, and it probably starts to blend in to each other. The most recent announcement is the $500 million in additional aid. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that aid means, what the promise is?
So the president just made this formal announcement while he was in Kyiv, and it, so far as we know, will go toward anti-armor systems, more ammunition, more weapons that are not exactly what Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has been asking for. Mm-hmm. There was no mention of fighter jets. And the reason why that's important, Anne-Marie, is because, officials believe that Russia is about to enter a new phase of the conflict, real escalation, and start to fight from the sky even more. When you look at wars in the past, in the sky is really where wars are won and lost. And Zelenskyy has said for a long time now that, if they do not have these fighter jets, even if they have defense capabilities, even if they have everything they want on the ground, he doesn't believe it's going to be enough to win and to ultimately end this conflict. And so the U.S. has been very hesitant to even indicate a little bit of a change of mind on this. The administration stance is they're not going to provide these planes. However, We should say that the president, the administration before has said they weren't going to supply certain things and then reverse course. And so that is, I think, what Zelenskyy is hoping for and banking on. But as of right now, that is not included in this new $500 million that the president just announced.
Yeah, there have been a number of sort of red lines that that not just the U.S., but other countries have said no go, and they wring their hands. They have a lot of meetings, and then ultimately over time they relent. The battle tanks is a great example, and then there's a new red line, because that's the nature of a war. Once you introduce new military equipment, whether offensive or defensive, then the nature of the war changes, and then perhaps more or different types of equipment is needed. You know, we talked about the messaging that's being sent to Russia, being sent to allies. I'm wondering if there's also a message to the domestic audience here in the U.S.
Yes, I think so, Anne-Marie. I think that the president wants to convince Americans that this is worth it, to persuade them that, you know, the U.S. should continue to stand by Ukraine, because as you talked about, there is some fatigue, especially when it comes to Republicans who have been very supportive of all the aid the U.S. has provided, but have also said they're not going to write a, quote, blank check, right, for this conflict. And so I think there is more tension starting to build. People want to know, you know, where's the end? And that's something we've been asking from day one. You know, how much funding are you willing to give at the end of the day? Do you have a cap? And it sounds like the answer is no. And I think that you know, to get Americans on board with that, the president has to stay on top of that message to explain that this is far greater in their view, in the administration's view, than the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. You know, I really think they believe this sets a tremendous precedent for, you know, what happens when Western allies can get together and stand against autocrats. And so I think that will be the message as he continues to drive home, that this is about the future too. This is about preventing World War III. This is about keeping America safe, even though it's not directly involved in the war. And so he does have work to do, though, because, you know, when you look at polls, the support is starting to wane, because you're talking about, you know, figures of money that, as you know, rightfully pointed out, you know, the numbers almost don't make sense, because there's so much money at this point.
Yeah, it's so true. And listen, to that end, the president is going to Poland later on today. You know, Poland was another country that expressed some hesitancy about the idea of providing fighter jets to Ukraine. What do we know about his trip and what's going to be happening?
Well, the president will meet with the Polish president, Duda, there, and again stand together and express this commitment to Ukraine. He'll also meet with the leaders of the Bucharest Nine, which are the NATO allies on the eastern flank there, the really critical area, you know, that is most vulnerable to Russian troops. And we do expect he will make a formal speech. This was always on the agenda, again, not only for Putin and for the allies there, but for the American public to hear. So we don't know if he'll have a formal news conference, but I imagine he will. Our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes, is there traveling with President Biden. And so I think this is such a critical trip, because, you know, when you look at his foreign policy after he leaves the White House, I think this will be one of his legacies. Again, you know, providing so much support for a country where there is no direct American involvement on the ground there.
Yeah. Weijia Jiang, thank you so much for jumping into place. It's so quickly. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.